Hey Course Hero, welcome to the channel. Today is Whiteboard Wednesday and today we are talking about domains and hosting. So get this question a lot. Where should I buy my domain name from? Do I need a domain name? Does my learning management system provide me with a domain name? So we are going to Whiteboard Wednesday it out and I'm going to walk you through when you need a domain, when you need a hosting, should you get both, should you get just one, and how the heck to do it. So let's get started. Let's break this down, and I apologize. In the last few Whiteboard Wednesday videos, my chicken scratch was a little too chicken scratchy and since then I've bought a new device on Amazon Prime. I'll link that in the show notes below, in the video. It's called XP Pen, so it has a much better writing surface area than my iPad, and hopefully this delivers a better, clearer result for you as you're watching these videos. So with that, let's get started. Domains, hosting, WordPress, WordPress.com, WordPress.org, how do these all work? And I get this question a lot, and these were all my questions too when I first started on my course creation journey. So hopefully this will help you understanding how some of this works. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw, so this is going to be domains, and the way to look at domain is, the way I look at it is, domain is a street address of your home. So the domain could, the WWW or whatever you buy is your domain name, and that usually costs anywhere between $8 onwards depending on which buying service you're using to buy your domain. So for example, my domain name is getnzlr.com. So this domain name, I bought it from Namecheap, and Namecheap is a domain provider where you can buy these names. Now all these names are owned by ICANN, ICANN. They are the people who own and provision domain names, and then you have resellers like Namecheap, GoDaddy, or any other. I'm sure you've heard of these two, but there are so many resellers of domain names that sell that domain to you as the end user, to us. That's where you buy your domain, and then what you need to do is, so now you have your street address, but you now need to build your house, right? So let's say this is our house. Now this house needs to be built somewhere, and that's where a hosting comes in. So you have your hosting and then you have your domain. All right, so this is your hosting, and your hosting is the provider where all your internet files are going to live. Think when someone comes to your website, right? When someone goes to getnzlr.com, they are essentially being shown a website that is being served from a specific hosting provider. Now, sometimes the hosting and the domain can be bought at the same place. So you have your domain and your hosting, and this can sometimes be bought in the same place if they provide it. Now, a good example of that is Namecheap. So if we go here, and Namecheap provides you with domain names and with hostings. But what if that's not the case? And in my example, that is not the case. I have my hosting through a different company, and I have multiple companies that I buy my hosting from. So the example that I'm going to give you is my website, which is NZLR. And this website, I bought it from Namecheap. So the domain name is bought from Namecheap, but the website is hosted on a place called Cloudways. And Cloudways provides me with hosting. Now, why would I do that? And why would I not go with Namecheap as the hosting provider? The reason for this is that Cloudways has better customer support and is much faster, and site speed is the most important thing when it comes to visitors coming to your site. If your site is not fast, they're simply going to bounce from your site and probably never come back, and that's not a good first impression. So I wanted that good first impression, and that is why I am paying separate for my Cloudways hosting. Now, you don't have to do that. That's just my way of doing things. The next question becomes, how do I make sure that when someone types this website address in, that it goes into my Cloudways account and they are shown the correct website? Let's make another drawing here. So I have my domain on Namecheap, getnzlr, and then when someone goes there, they're served the website which is being served from my Cloudways hosting. And how that happens is, within your domain name provider, there is a setting, and I will put that screenshot in here, and that setting allows you to put in server names. So you have to get your server name, and that server name is going to be what gets propagated when someone types in your domain name. Don't lose me here. And then the server name usually is an IP address, so it would be something like 172.168, and I'm just giving you an example. An IP address always has this kind of nomenclature, so you would follow this IP address. You'll take this IP address and put it in your domain name settings. Now sometimes these are names instead of IP addresses. For example, you could see something like ns.serena.com, ns.andy.com, and that's fine too. It's either the IP address or the name, either or works. The idea is that your domain, the rented, your street address needs to point visitors and show them a path inside your home, and that all happens through these addresses. I'm going to throw something else in the mix here, and that this is a little advanced and complex, so you can completely skip this part if you want to. But what I also have is here, I have an intermediary called Cloudflare, and you might have heard of Cloudflare. So what happens is people go to my website, which is the domain lives on Namecheap, but the domain name servers are pointing to Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is a domain name propagation service, which basically provides faster speeds for the domain, not the hosting, just the domain, so your users can connect to the domain faster. When someone types in getnzlr.com, what happens is they are taken to Cloudflare's domain name servers. From there, I have the settings in there to then show my Cloudways account. Here I'm going to write Cloudways, and that Cloudways account finally delivers my website. Now my website has been designed on WordPress, and what happens is WordPress.org. And what happens is when you buy a hosting account, these hosting accounts, and now Cloudways usually, or any other hosting provider, it could be Namecheap, it could be Cloudways, there's SiteGround, there's so many hosting providers. But these hosting providers have a back end system called a cPanel, control panel. And in this cPanel, you do one-click installs. And what that one-click install does is basically installs WordPress PHP scripts onto that domain name that we talked about earlier. So this one-click install will install a WordPress site onto my domain, which is getnzlr.com. And then once that is installed, I can install plugins on my WordPress site. I can optimize it using those plugins to make it faster, to make it look and feel the way I want it to. So that's all. This is basically the whole concept revolves around this stuff right here, is getting your hosting from one place, your domain from another place, connecting the two, installing your WordPress site. If you're brand new to course creation, you can skip all of this and maybe just buy a domain name if you really want your branded domain name on your course page. So if you're new to the course creation space, and what you can do is you can use a learning management system, and I always recommend new Zenler, but this learning management system could be anything. So I have written down these learning management systems, and again, this doesn't apply to Udemy because with Udemy you cannot have a custom domain, but all of these sites. So for example, when I created my course for the first time on New Zenler, my domain name was, or it still is, and as you can see, this has this is basically their branded domain because I am simply putting my subdomain in front of their domain. So this part right here is their domain, and then this is my subdomain. So you will also hear the term subdomain thrown out a lot, and essentially the subdomain is the part that comes before the main domain. And another term that is used in the domain industry is called TLD, which stands for top level domain. And that top level domain is essentially the main domain here. So newzenler.com, thinkific.com, teachable.com, these are all TLDs, top level .coms, top level domains. It doesn't have to be .com, it can be .co, .in, .nz, whatever your top level domain name is that you have bought. But a subdomain is the small part in front of that domain. And you will hear that a lot. It basically means that if you're new to the online course creation space, you can essentially start using their top level domain and just put your subdomain in front of it. So a good example of this one, which I already gave you one, but the other one is I had created a course on Teachable, which was let's rock the hotel.teachable.com. And as you can see, this gives, when you share this URL with your potential students, they're going to see that .teachable in front of it. So in order to avoid that, what you can do is, let's say you don't want to buy hosting, you don't want to create a WordPress site, you don't want to manage plugins, you don't want to become a web developer. All you want to do is create and sell your course. All of these platforms provide page builders where they allow you to build your sales page on their platform, so you don't have to use WordPress for it. Now, of course, each and every platform has its own limitation. If you're not using WordPress, you lose that customization. But what you gain is you gain back time, and you don't have to learn all of that stuff. In that case, what you can do is you can simply buy a domain name, right? So buy a domain from a domain registrar like Namecheap, buy that domain name. Then in the DNS settings of that domain name, you are going to point it to the Teachable, and all these platforms will give you directions on how to do it. But basically, you're going to repoint that domain name. So if someone goes to letsrockthehotel.com, they're actually redirected to Teachable. One thing to note is most of these platforms, when you do buy, when you do get the subdomain, or when you want to do custom domain with them, they usually charge you extra money for custom domain. It's not included in their basic plan. So just keep that in mind. But that's pretty much it. That's how everything works in the domain world. So you first buy a domain name, and then you buy hosting, and then you install that WordPress onto your hosting, and that's one way to do it. Or the second way to do it is just go with a learning management system like Teachable, Thinkific, or New Zenler or Kajabi, and use their domain names and just put your subdomain in front of it. And the third is to just buy a domain name, point it to your school, so you can add a redirect to your domain that whenever someone types letsrockthehotel.com, they're actually taken to your learning management system website. And that's it to it. I know it sounded confusing, but that's pretty much it. And then you do have to renew your domain every year. And then you also have to have a domain Ssl certificate, which basically puts the S in front of HTTP, and it tells Google that your website is secure because it has the S, which is a SSL certificate. So SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer. Basically, it tells Google that your website is secure, or any other search engine. When a visitor comes to your website, it gives them that sense of security. And most domain name providers usually throw in the SSL for free, or they charge you very minimal for it. It's like $1 extra. One thing to remember with domain names, it's like a piece of land. You can never own a piece of land because you have to pay taxes on that piece of land to whichever country you live in. So your land can never be yours because you have to pay taxes, right? And if you don't pay taxes, the government is going to come take your land away. Similarly, a domain name is always rented. You never own a domain name. You own the rights to use that domain name till you stop paying. And if you default on repaying your domain name every year for the renewal, you're going to lose that domain name and someone else can buy it. Just keep that in mind, and make sure that if this domain name is something you're going to keep for the rest of your life, that you have auto pay or automatic renewal set up on that domain name. And that automatic renewal will basically make sure that your domain gets renewed every year, and you don't have to think about it, because you might lose that domain name, and if you really like it, you don't want to lose it. And there you have it, Course Hero. That is how you can get a domain, a hosting if you want it, or you can go without a domain and without a hosting and just use the prefix domain that you get with your learning management system. I hope this helped you out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the flip side.